Why do you think Nvidia did this deal? Walk me through what you think their calculus is here.
I mean, there's the super obvious is that they and CoreWeave are highly committed to making sure that GPU cloud AI infrastructure build-outs happen as quickly as possible, and that capital does not become one of the constraints. That's the super obvious. The slightly less obvious, but still obvious, is that NVIDIA feels a little bit of pressure from Google TPUs, and they want to make sure they are still able to influence the direction of the hardware that's used for inferencing. But I think the real story here is that inference workloads and prompting and tokens are about to explode because of agentic inference, which is going to have models prompting models rather than just humans prompting models.
I'll get to the inference part of this in a second because you've written about that topic extensively. But I do want to ask about NVIDIA's role as an investor, a supplier, a customer of CoreWeave. I mean, when you have one company that has so many different ways of connecting to another company, I mean, is this a good idea to you? Is it inevitable? What do you think of it?
I think what's happening is that there is uh, so much demand and so little supply. And the way to finance these types of build outs can't be done by traditional mechanisms, bank debt, et cetera. So we're seeing unique types of financial structure. For example, when CoreWeave first built out, it used the private credit markets. But what we're seeing is that instead of going to just private credit markets or traditional means of financing, they're going to the large corporates who have the best interest of themselves and of getting these buildouts done. So that includes Microsoft, that includes Google, that includes Nvidia, of course. And so the capital's got to come from somewhere. It's not a demand problem at all.
Now, you worked at Amazon Web Services for a long time, and we've had executives from Neoclouds on the show before. And the question I've asked them is, hey, how do you think about competing with the larger cloud providers as you provide a smaller but more specific offering? I wonder, when you were at AWS, how does AWS think about defending itself against these Neoclouds, these AI specialized clouds? I mean, is it really a threat? Do they have, more specific offerings that they hope to target that segment?
Well, so when I was at AWS, I'd say I was there right up until the Neocloud started to appear. And my first look at them was like, how can they possibly compete with Amazon? The reality is that the economics of building the types of data centers that the Neoclouds are building are superior to the economics that the hyperscalers have. And if you look at pricing for instances, that's what you see. I don't know what the exact pricing is today, but in general, especially when this first started, the neoclouds were coming in 50% or more cheaper and more effective at getting these workloads up and running. And still today, you're seeing some of that, and they have to, it's very difficult for the legacy cloud providers to do that overnight.
How did they get that price efficiency? What makes them able to offer it so cheaply?
So it's I'd say, so their data centers are designed to handle GPU workloads, and their data centers are designed to be able to more effectively incorporate technology like NVIDIA's H100s, B200s, et cetera. And so they're fitted with the types of racks, the types of design, the types of networking, and especially the types of cooling to do this. The legacy data centers, it's not simply a matter of like, oh, you're just going to swap out one rack of CPUs or older GPUs for these new things. And I don't blame the hyperscalers. They have, between the three major hyperscalers, they have $200 billion a year in revenue to serve. And so it's not like they can shut that down and start to serve the GPU cloud from that. They have to build their own new stuff. And I think the initial the initial deal that Microsoft did with CoreWeave is a proof point right there. Microsoft was like, well, it doesn't seem like we can do this. Let's work with CoreWeave to do it.
Hmm. I want to pivot to talking about something that you wrote about earlier in this year. You were talking about themes that uh, you think will dominate the conversation in 2026, and this was on your blog. And you wrote about edge inference, and you wrote about that becoming a topic that you think really will dominate much of the conversation. Why do you think that will be the case? And I should also say, for those of us who don't know what edge inference is specifically, explain to us what it is even.
So this means what I mean by edge inference is basically running inference workloads anywhere that is not a centralized data center. So that could be on device, that could be at colocation facilities, that could be at any places in between those. And so when I started to look at that, I first thought, I was like, well, this is a natural progression. The same thing happened with cloud and hosting as we went to content distribution networks, but that was from latency. Latency will become an issue, but the real issue here is what we saw at the end of last year. There's no power. There's not enough power to provide to build these data centers right now, and so there's any number of solutions to this, whether it's getting more power, whether it's using gas turbines or more efficient ships. But another way to reduce the strain on on the power supply is to have some of these inference workloads deployed in less, I don't want to call them less capable, but less expensive data centers and facilities to run. And so the CoreWeaves and hyperscalers of the world will continue to build these mega centers as they should. But for some workloads, that's going to be overkill and the economics just won't work. And you can have these other locations that have much less power constraints than these larger data centers do.
So the idea here is basically being able to subdivide the workloads between what needs to happen at a big data center versus what inference can actually happen on my iPhone, sort of thing. I mean, that's sort of the prediction that you're making.
Yeah, I mean, like iPhone is one spot. I mean, I think it's proven pretty difficult to get inference on a device. Apple's been trying that for a while. We haven't quite gotten there. I think we'll get closer. But whether it's on device, on prem, or in content distribution networks, that's where I see some of the kind of like the power undersupply being mitigated.
Right. And last question for you then. I mean, what's not there yet about the technology? I mean, why hasn't this happened yet?
Well, so, uh, as in, so first of all, you can't put H100s and B200s and other types of devices into
Right.
into these smaller parts of the network. But you also need to be able to right size these, and it hasn't been the predominant issue. But as we move to, as inference becomes more and more significant portion of workloads, it's already more than 50%, and it's going to explode with agentic AI, like models prompting models. This is going to become a much, much, much greater problem. And so we're going to need to deploy this infrastructure in other places.
Hmm, great. Well, David, I want to thank you for coming on. That is David Levy, general partner of Porch Capital here on TITV.